Is New York City luxury real estate safe from Zohran Mamdani? Will one of New York City's top broker actually think it is? So we're going to take a look at what he has to say and see if it makes any sense. Noble Black from the Corcoran group actually think that it is going to be safe. However, there may be a caveat for all of the real estate. So let's take a look at what he has to say, and we'll break it down bit by bit.
Perfect time to have real estate broker Noble Black back on the show by popular demand. All right, Noble, what happens to New York City real estate if as is very likely, Mamdani wins?
It's going to keep on clicking. People still want to be in New York. They're still going to be buying here. They're still going to be living here. I think everyone's talking about it, but the conversations I'm having about it are with my buyers as we're out looking at apartments for them to buy.
What about way up there, highly upscale apartments in New York City, multi-million-dollar apartments? Yeah. Are they still selling well?
Absolutely.
Are prices holding?
Yes, that's been doing very well. We had our best third quarter in the last 3 years, our best September since September of 21, and that's the high end as well. The high end's actually been doing better than the kind of more normal apartments.
Good figure. Have you seen?
So that's very interesting. If you listen to what he just said, he said that the high end has been doing much better than the more normal. So that's very interesting. If you listen to what he just said, he said that the high end has been doing much better than the more normal. I would assume that he's saying all other real estate. And we're going to get into why, but he does make a really good point that there has been more purchases with regards to high-end luxury, real estate, apartment, housing units, especially in the Manhattan area. But we're going to see why that's the case. And I think we're going to, it may shock you or it may catch you by surprise, but I think this is very interesting.
We keep talking about how people are going to leave the city. They're going to fly down there to Florida. Right. Have you seen any of that yet? The election's only a couple of weeks away.
Look, we've been seeing that for years as taxes rise in the blue states, right?
There's tax flight. Inflow.
Keep that in mind. As taxes rise, we have been seeing a lot of people moving out, okay? That's very important.
But we've also seen people coming back. It's one thing to say I want to live here for zero income tax. It's another thing to say that I have to live here all year round. So there's been a return. Before Mamdani won the nomination, some of the interviews that we were doing were about the return of people back to the city.
So again, I want to note what he says. He says, but we also seen people coming back. Now, he's not wrong. And here's why. It has a lot to do with taxes. It has a lot to do with what people are paying. Now, you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute. New York City has one of the highest taxes in the union, right? I mean, you're paying local income taxes, you're paying property taxes, you're paying state income taxes, so on and so forth. So what's the catch here? What is it that people are, especially in the luxury real estate market, what is it that they're able to avoid that makes luxury real estate compelling? And so I think we're going to get into that right now.
Bet you're seeing a lot of people who are coming back to the city, but they make sure that they don't spend more than 6 months in the city.
Yeah, there's plenty that count their days, absolutely.
They count their days. Absolutely. So they don't pay New York City tax if they live here for less than 6 months.
Yeah, that's certainly a very important number of people that are doing that, right? But for a lot of people...
Okay, there you go, all right? There are people who take a primary residency somewhere outside the state, whether it be New Jersey, Florida, what have you, but they may come back into the city every now and then to work, but as long as they keep it within under 6 months and can prove that it's not their primary residency, that they're only there just temporarily, they may avoid or minimize those tax burdens. Now, that's something that not everyone can do. Obviously, if you're a millionaire, multimillionaire, and you're able to do that, that might make sense, right? If you have an office in New York or if you have a business in New York, but for everyone else, that's not the case, right? Not everyone can actually do that. So
they can't do that. You look at this big building JP Morgan just built, like they've got to be there, right? So for a lot of people, it was easy years ago to do that. You are seeing people that come back, but it's certainly that.
Okay, so this is a good point because he said, well, there are some people. When he says some people, he's talking about corporations, right? So JP Morgan, I guess they just built a major, office or headquarters in New York City. So they're not going to go anywhere. Obviously, any business that have invested a great deal of capital in New York City, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Not unless it's really, really dire. But for everyone else, that may not be the case. If they haven't made those big capital improvements in their business in the city of New York, then there's really no reason for them to stay. And so I think this here is the caveat. Goldman Sachs, for example, has unveiled a fresh look inside the new campus at North End. So here's where Goldman Sachs is making a huge investment in Texas, okay? and they are in the works, if not already have rendered some sort of campus there, about 8,000 square foot campus, which will house about 5,000 employees. That's a huge investment, right? When a company make that kind of investment, again, it may not be the headquarters, but this is a significant investment away from the city of New York that could have been in the city, but instead went somewhere else. This is a 1.5 acre investment. Okay. With that being said, I think it's important at this point to see why people would leave the city of New York. And as you probably guess it, the number one reason is going to be, for the most part, affordability, right? Let's show some numbers here to see what I'm talking about. Here's a New York City resident survey that I think is very telling. At the very bottom here, we see affordability being very important for most people as far as the factors for them considering to leave. And then you have orange here as somewhat. I would kind of put this together because it's somewhat maybe on a fence, but they pretty much have one foot out the door. And then second would be crime and safety, and third would be living space, and then up here fourth would be taxes. So there is a large enough gap for the very important and somewhat with regards to taxes, but I would put that together with affordability because both taxes and affordability kind of go hand in hand. So let's look at one more poll over here to show you what that looked like in terms of numbers, even going back in 2024, actually maybe back as far as 2023. Quinnipiac, New York City had crime as 41% of the reason why people either left New York or considering leaving New York. 41% is crime. Then 17% is housing. 12% is homeless. Then we come to 2025. Affordability now becomes a big reason at 76%. Okay. Even the most recent, which is here, March of 2020, March of 2025, what received a low satisfaction rate was both crime and immigration as being the top reason. And remember, that was one of the top reasons why Trump got elected back in late 2024 is because of immigration and because of crime. That was a big deal to a lot of people, especially in these big cities like New York City. So I think this is very telling. The fact that there are people that are still buying luxury property in the city of New York, but they only do so because they can avoid or at least minimize to some extent the burden of taxation. That's not what everyone else can do, okay? So when you have an incoming mayor who's talking about raising taxes, especially on the rich, well, they have a way to avoid that. And if they do have a way to avoid that, then, and you're still making these promises, then who else are you going to tax? Well, at some point you got to tax someone else, and that's going to be, well, everyone else. Everyone else is going to kind of have to rely on perhaps the bigger picture, right? That is mortgage rates going down or more housing units, right? Residential units being built so that increasing supply can hopefully decrease property prices over time, make that more affordable while those mortgage rates continue to go down. That's not what really the wealthy have to worry about. There are ways that they can get around this. And this is one of the reasons why when you talk about taxing the rich, it's not as easy as just doing that, taxing the rich. There are some things that needs to get done. And in any case, whoever wins, and again, I'm not a New York City resident, but whoever wins, I certainly would hope that they would govern with a lot of wisdom. All right, thank you for joining RVM again. My name is Harry, and I'll see you in the next video.